Captain Ibrahim Traoré is seen as a beacon of hope, as someone that is looked up to, and people across Africa, not just Burkina Faso, appreciate what he is doing for his country, as well as uniting African countries. When it comes to Mali and Niger, the IES, it is a big topic for Africans that care to see Africa thriving.
On a dusty runway just outside Ouagadougou, history took flight. What began as whispered rumors of strange construction in Burkina Faso has now exploded into the global spotlight. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, has stunned the world by unveiling Africa's first fully locally made advanced aircraft, a feat no one in the West saw coming. This wasn't an imported machine, repainted for optics. It wasn't a hand-me-down shell from Europe or a donation tagged with strings. This aircraft was born on African soil, built with African minds, and unveiled under skies long monopolized by foreign influence. Thousands gathered to witness the event. There were engineers, military officials, journalists, and ordinary Burkinabe citizens. Some stood in silent disbelief, others shouted with pride. As the tarp fell, a sleek aircraft gleamed beneath the sun, its frame dressed in the red, green, and gold of Burkina Faso. Its takeoff was smooth, powerful, silent. It didn't just rise from the ground, it shattered decades of doubt. Africa is no longer waiting, we're building. President Traoré made no grand gestures as he approached the aircraft. He placed a single hand on its body, looked into the cameras and said, "This is our new beginning. Africa will fly with or without you." The moment was more than symbolic. Inside the aircraft, advanced navigation systems, lightweight but durable materials, and smart fuel tech quietly challenged the best offerings from Western manufacturers. Early reports describe its specifications as next-gen, and in some aspects, superior to Western models. Almost immediately, reactions poured in from around the world. Social media lit up. On TikTok, young Africans danced under overlays of the plane taking off. On Instagram, influencers reposted video clips with captions like "Africa's Wright Brothers moment." But the West wasn't clapping. European and American aviation firms have quietly reached out to the Burkinabe government, seeking access to the technology, offering partnerships cloaked in flattery. But according to insiders close to the president, Traoré is unmoved. They had their turn, now it's Africa's. The surprise isn't just in the plane's existence, it's in how it was made. For nearly 2 years, Traoré oversaw a secretive defense project hidden outside Ouagadougou. The facility, guarded by soldiers and ringed with surveillance tech, was off the grid. Engineers worked nights. Materials arrived in crates without labels. Every satellite image was misdirected, every blueprint printed underground. The operation was a ghost in a region watched closely by foreign powers. And the team? A coalition the West never predicted. Burkinabe engineers trained in Moscow, Iranian aviation experts, North Korean metallurgists. No loans, no IMF contracts, no Western fingerprints. It was intentional. No one could leak what they didn't know. Funding came directly from Burkina Faso's gold mining revenues. Instead of flowing through foreign banks and corrupt intermediaries, the wealth was redirected into the project. For once, the nation's natural resources weren't exported for profit. They were converted into progress. Months turned into momentum. First the shell, then the wings, then an African-made engine roaring in a hangar for the first time in history. Traoré gave strict orders. No announcement, no warning. Let the world see it when it takes off. By the time foreign intelligence caught wind of what was coming, the aircraft was already climbing above Ouagadougou. The reaction was instant and divided. Across Africa, people danced, cried, celebrated. In Ghana, students waved Burkina Faso's flag. In Mali, crowds chanted Traoré's name. Even in South Africa, politicians congratulated the country, calling the moment a new chapter in African sovereignty. But in the West, the tone was different. In Washington, analysts scrambled to assess the aircraft's origins. Reports confirmed the tech was non-Western. Some feared this was only the beginning. What if Mali builds the next one? What if an African aerospace industry rises outside of NATO's view? At Airbus, executives met behind closed doors. At Boeing, memos warned of an emerging nationalist tech bloc in Africa. Even France, long accused of meddling in its former colonies, fell uncharacteristically silent. French defense sources leaked internal warnings of geopolitical rupture. It wasn't just the engineering that sparked fear. It was the symbolism. For over a century, Africa had been told to wait, to borrow, to beg for access to the skies. Every airport echoed with the sound of foreign jets. Every contract came with debt. But today, that chain was broken. This plane, built in secret, funded independently, designed by Africans, was more than metal and wings. It was a declaration. We no longer need permission to rise. That message traveled fast, and, not everyone liked it. Behind the scenes, pressure really started to mount. Western firms tried to make contact with Burkinabe officials. Several European businessmen showed up in the country claiming to offer energy deals, but they were turned away. 2 weeks later, cyber attacks began. Burkina Faso's aviation servers were hit repeatedly. Emails were intercepted, blueprints scrambled. But the team had worked offline from the beginning, so the attacks just hit air. The most brazen act came just days before the launch. 2 French nationals were arrested near the restricted zone with surveillance drones, encrypted hard drives, and military-grade optics. Their cover? Energy consultants? Investigators say they were operatives. Their orders? Locate the aircraft and sabotage it before takeoff. They failed. Because honestly, this project wasn't just about engineering. It was built on loyalty, silence, and the belief that Africa doesn't need outsiders to dream big. As Traoré stood before the crowd, there was no smugness, no self-congratulation, just a single point to the sky. This is where we belong, and for once, the world had no response. The dust had barely settled from the first takeoff, but inside a hangar just outside Ouagadougou, the next chapter was already being written. Blueprints of a second, more advanced aircraft were already pinned to the walls. This time, the design was bigger, faster, and dual-purpose, ready for both civilian use and military defense. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had made it clear, this was never about building a single plane. It was about igniting a movement, a Pan-African aerospace future. The unveiling wasn't a final note, it was a starting gun. Within hours of the launch, applications just flooded in. Young Burkinabe scientists living abroad wrote in, eager to return home. Talented engineers from Rwanda, Ghana, and Mali signaled interest in joining the next project, not to work under Western logos, but to build for Africa, under African flags. At the post-launch press conference, Traoré stood not just as a leader, but as a builder. He announced a national aerospace program, complete with a training institute, a stealth research lab, and a propulsion development center. There was talk of a satellite partnership already in negotiation, not with NASA or the European Space Agency, but with unnamed allies outside the Western sphere. Most importantly, he vowed it would all be funded with African capital. Revenues from gold, manganese, and rare earth minerals long siphoned for foreign profit would now stay home. The energy around the project wasn't just technical, it was emotional. Across Africa, from students to soldiers, the sentiment was clear. This was ours. Because for decades, Africa had been told it couldn't build, that the continent lacked the discipline, the resources, the expertise. Traoré didn't argue, he just built. But with momentum came danger. Western satellites increased flyovers of the region. French drones were spotted along Burkina Faso's borders. Security was tightened. Traoré's inner circle tripled their defenses. Intelligence services intercepted chatter of more foreign agents attempting to enter through neighboring countries. Cyber attacks resumed. Backdoor attempts were made. Bribes were quietly offered to Burkinabe engineers. So far, none had cracked. But everyone knew they wouldn't let this happen twice without a fight. AES member states began meeting quietly, discussing joint production lines, regional aerospace commands, and research hubs. There were whispers of scholarships for African youth to study aeronautics in Moscow, Tehran, and Pyongyang. One proposed idea, an African satellite constellation to monitor its own territory, independent from Western GPS or communications systems. It sounded bold, but now nothing sounded too ambitious. Because the moment Traoré's aircraft left the runway, everything changed. Suddenly, Africa wasn't just a market, it was a builder. The West reacted predictably. In public, they downplayed the launch. French media called it symbolic. US outlets buried it under other headlines. But behind closed doors, panic simmered. In Paris, a defense report labeled the aircraft a strategic rupture. In Washington, intelligence briefings described the event as a techno-political realignment. Think tanks scrambled to revise forecasts. Some even suggested reintroducing counter-influence campaigns in the Sahel, because the fear wasn't just about a single plane. It was about the chain reaction. If Burkina Faso could do it, what's stopping Mali or Niger? What happens when Guinea uses its gold to finance drones? When Congo funds aerospace labs with cobalt instead of exporting raw minerals? When a continent once stripped for resources begins building with those very same materials? That's what scares them. This wasn't a technical disruption, it was ideological, a rupture in control. Traoré knows it, his supporters know it, and even his critics are starting to admit it. Something big is shifting. This isn't nationalism. It's not about isolation, it's about balance, dignity, a refusal to be told who can and can't touch the skies. For too long, Africa's best minds were exported. Now they're returning. One aviation student in Nigeria posted, "I used to dream of working for Airbus. Now I want to work for Burkina Aero." That sentiment is spreading, and it's forcing a recalibration, because the usual tools, debt traps, diplomacy, aid dependency, aren't working. They can't sanction what they don't fund. They can't suppress what they can't see. And for the first time, they don't control the narrative. African media is louder, faster, and more unified than ever. Analysts admit that online momentum in support of Traoré's plane far outpaced Western attempts to downplay it. They called it a symbolic stunt, but when the second aircraft rolls out, they'll have to find a new word. Because this isn't about catching up. It's about choosing a new path. A path not measured by Western validation, but defined by African values, priorities, and control. It's not the wingspan that terrifies old powers, it's the wings of independence. And Traoré, he hasn't blinked. As pressure mounts, he keeps moving. Not recklessly, but with purpose, with precision. At the heart of it all lies a truth. The moment you fly once, no one can convince you to crawl again. Across Africa, youth movements are rising. Universities are launching new engineering tracks. Regional coalitions are forming. The launch has become a signal for something greater, a belief that sovereignty isn't just possible, it's overdue. Burkina Faso may have built the aircraft, but the flight belongs to every African who ever wondered, what if we could? Now they know. They can. The engines are warming again, the blueprints are spreading, and the skies are no longer off limits. Africa has taken off, and there's no turning back. If this story inspired you, drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video to support our work and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future developments across Africa and beyond. There was a time when Burkina Faso's people were expected to accept their fate. Poor infrastructure, imported food, failing power, and limited opportunity. But that chapter is closing. Under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is no longer asking for help. It's building its future from the ground up, and it's doing so in ways that challenge the very systems that once kept it dependent. This is not just another story of foreign aid or small progress. What's unfolding in this West African nation is a blueprint for homegrown transformation, one that starts unexpectedly with a tomato. For years, local farmers watched their crops rot in baskets. Tomatoes that should have fed the nation were left unsold, eventually replaced by imported tomato paste sold back to them at triple the price. That cycle of waste and dependence is now breaking. In the region of high tomato yield, the government has built an $8 million tomato processing plant, a state-of-the-art facility that's turning food sovereignty into a national strategy. This plant does more than canned tomatoes. It reduces reliance on European and Chinese imports. It preserves local harvests, adds value within national borders, and keeps money circulating inside the economy. More than 150 jobs have already been created. Machine operators, technicians, transporters, and packaging suppliers now have steady work. And across the agricultural supply chain, small farmers have a stable market that pays fair prices. But what truly sets this apart is the approach. The project wasn't imposed by foreign donors. It wasn't shaped by outside consultants. It was funded through state-backed investment, developed with regional allies, and aligned with Burkina Faso's long-term plan to become the agro-industrial engine of the Sahel. To support the shift, agricultural training centers are teaching farmers how to improve yields, choose the right seed varieties, and time their planting seasons. Meanwhile, youth aren't just being trained to farm. They're being trained to manage entire food systems. This is not a one-time factory. It's the start of a nationwide network of locally driven, value-added industries. And if tomatoes can transform into a national symbol of independence, what happens when the roads carrying them reach the borders? That's where the $120 million Bobo Dioulasso Ivory Coast motorway comes in. Stretching from Burkina Faso's second-largest city to the southern border, this road is not just a highway, it's a geopolitical move. It opens direct access to Atlantic ports and connects producers to new markets. It cuts transport costs, shortens delivery times, and bypasses the traditional northern trade routes historically tied to French influence. It was designed to reduce the country's dependence on others, And it's already doing that, 1 mile at a time. Unlike many African mega-projects, this corridor was not built as a showpiece. It's rooted in the needs of local businesses, farmers, and consumers. Built with local labor and backed by regional partners, it's becoming a lifeline for communities along the route. Rest stops, markets, housing areas, and logistics hubs are appearing where once there was little. The transformation is tangible. Products move faster, jobs are created, villages are linked to national and regional markets. For the first time in years, Burkina Faso isn't just following the flow, it's directing it. But roads and factories alone can't fuel change without power. That's where Yellen comes in, the country's most ambitious solar power initiative to date. Backed by the World Bank and the Green Climate Fund, the Yellen program is bringing electricity to over 150 villages and more than 300,000 people, many for the first time. But Yellen is not about flipping switches. It's about flipping the script. By deploying solar mini-grids and standalone systems in schools, clinics, homes, and markets, the program is reaching places the national grid never did. For rural clinics, it means vaccines stay cold. For students, it means study doesn't stop when the sun goes down. For local shops, it means longer business hours and refrigeration. Importantly, this is not imported energy. It's clean, decentralized, and locally maintained. Panels are installed and serviced by homegrown technicians, creating a workforce that understands both the technical and social sides of energy delivery. With every village lit, the possibilities grow. Industrialization, digitization, education, all powered on Burkina Faso's terms, not those of fossil fuel suppliers. But light alone doesn't build resilience. People need healing too. That's why a new regional university hospital is rising in Bobo Dioulasso. This is no standard facility. It's one of the most advanced medical centers in the country, and a symbol of sovereignty. For too long, proper healthcare was something the elite could fly abroad to access. In the Southwest, underfunded clinics and long travel times meant people often suffered in silence. That's changing. The hospital is being built not just to treat, but to train. It will educate future doctors and nurses, reducing dependence on foreign professionals and embedding expertise within the country. Surgical units, maternity care, emergency response, all powered by Yellen's solar grid, will serve tens of thousands. New ambulance routes and digital health systems will connect even remote villages to centralized care. This isn't a patchwork. It's a coordinated rebuild of the healthcare system, grounded in dignity and access. And for all the progress, there's one need no nation can ignore: water. That's where the Ziga 2 dam comes in. Built near the capital, Ouagadougou, this massive infrastructure project is a direct answer to the city's chronic water shortages. In past dry seasons, taps would run dry, hospitals rationed water, and families walked kilometers to find enough for daily use. Now, with Ziga 2's clean supply, that's ending. The dam will support hundreds of thousands with stable, safe water. It's paired with solar-powered pumping stations, modern filtration systems, and new distribution pipelines. Designed for climate resilience and managed by public authorities, it prioritizes people over profits, a sharp contrast to privatized utilities in much of the world. And the project isn't limited to cities. It ties into national efforts to expand rural water systems, protect groundwater reserves, and introduce rainwater harvesting, linking water directly to food security and public health. Together, these 5 efforts, in agriculture, transport, energy, healthcare, and water, are reshaping Burkina Faso from the roots up. What the world is witnessing isn't just a collection of development projects. It's a conscious shift, a movement toward true independence built one project, one village, one system at a time. In the past, independence in Africa often came in the form of flags and speeches. Today, in Burkina Faso, it's being built in bricks, data cables, and neighborhood banks. One of the clearest signs that this revolution is more than just physical infrastructure is the launch of Burkina, the country's first state-owned bank created to serve everyday people, not profit off them. For decades, international banks operated in Burkina Faso with a narrow focus. They served urban elites, foreign investors, and safe financial bets. Meanwhile, farmers, small business owners, women, and workers in the informal economy were left without access to credit or even basic accounts. The result was an economy that leaked. Money flowed out but rarely circulated where it was needed most. Burkina is designed to change that. It offers low-interest loans, microcredit programs for women, and mobile banking services in local languages, all delivered by local staff. From remote farming villages to busy market towns, the bank is reaching places no financial institution has before. What makes Burkina unique isn't just its services, it's the philosophy behind it. This bank is not a charitable arm or a temporary fix. It is a permanent part of the country's strategy to lift people into economic participation. Farmers can now take loans to buy equipment or seeds. Entrepreneurs can fund a startup. Families can save money without traveling long distances to the capital. Even better, Burkina is tied directly into the government's broader plans. Housing projects like Faso Maya are supported by mortgage packages. Agricultural cooperatives receive tailored group financing. And it's all connected through a new national digital network. Because while building roads and hospitals is vital, controlling your country's digital infrastructure might be even more critical in the 21st century. That's where PAC Digital comes in. A $150 million digital transformation program that's setting Burkina Faso up for long-term technological sovereignty. At the heart of this effort are 2 national data centers, now over 70% complete. Once finished, these facilities will store everything from civil records and financial data to healthcare systems and school enrollment platforms. No more sending sensitive information overseas. No more relying on foreign servers. The information backbone of the country will sit firmly inside its own borders. This is about more than storage. With PAC Digital, public services are going online, not for show but for access. Citizens will be able to apply for IDs, register land, sign up for school, and access government support using their mobile phones. That means no more long lines, no more bribes, and no more corruption through paperwork loopholes. But you know, digital inclusion doesn't stop at the government level. The project is expanding network coverage to at least 500 underserved areas, reaching rural communities, Sahelian villages, and newly developing urban neighborhoods. And with it comes digital literacy training, especially for women, youth, and small business owners. For the first time, an entire generation of Burkinabe are being taught how to thrive in a connected economy. They're learning how to code, how to manage finances online, and how to launch digital businesses. The tools for modern participation are no longer locked behind language barriers or expensive devices. PAC Digital also introduces data protection laws and frameworks for innovation, ensuring that the country's digital future remains in its own hands, not in those of foreign tech companies. What's taking shape is a complete ecosystem. Burkina provides the tools for financial empowerment. PAC Digital builds the platform to access and scale those tools. But the foundation of all of it, the pipelines, the schools, the homes, the markets, still need one basic resource to function: clean, accessible water. The Urban Water Sector project, supported by the World Bank, has already piped water into over 610,000 homes and improved sanitation for nearly 500,000 people. But what makes it different from past donor-backed initiatives is how it fits into the country's broader system overhaul. This is not an isolated intervention, it's an integrated move to guarantee water as a public right. In fast-growing cities like Ouagadougou and Bobo-Dioulasso, new filtration stations, drainage networks, and low-cost connections are being rolled out not just to central neighborhoods, but to informal settlements and outer districts long ignored. No more hauling water in plastic containers from miles away, no more overpaying water vendors, no more illnesses from dirty sources. With cleaner, better distributed water, people can spend their time building lives, not just surviving. Hygienic latrines are being installed in schools, clinics, and markets. Urban drainage systems are being redesigned to reduce flooding and prevent disease outbreaks during the rainy season. And all of it is managed digitally. Complaints, usage, and maintenance tracking happen through mobile platforms that link citizens directly to service providers. The transformation isn't just about infrastructure. It's about efficiency, accountability, and equity, principles that were often missing from public service delivery for decades. And while water might be the lifeblood of cities, in rural Burkina Faso, wealth often takes another form: livestock. That's why the Livestock Sector Development Support Project may be one of the most quietly revolutionary programs yet. Backed by the World Bank, this initiative brings veterinary science, commercial infrastructure, and new credit lines into a sector that supports millions. Livestock in Burkina Faso is more than food. It's inheritance, status, income, and community wealth. But for years, it was ignored. Herds were vulnerable to disease. Milk and meat spoiled before reaching markets. Herders had no access to finance or training. Now, that's changing. The project includes national vaccination campaigns, mobile vet teams, and training for small-scale herders. Livestock mortality is dropping, yields are rising, and small farmers are finding themselves part of a real functioning market. New processing facilities for dairy, meat, and hides are being built. Cold storage and transport systems are reducing waste and extending trade opportunities. And through Burkina, many herders are now eligible for small loans to expand operations, buy better breeds, or adopt new feeding systems. This isn't just about farming, it's about economic power. Rural women who often manage goats and sheep are being given tools to lift themselves and their families out of poverty. And with cross-border trade corridors expanding, Burkina Faso's livestock is becoming a regional export asset, not just a survival strategy. Put all of this together: the tomato factories, the highways, the solar grids, the hospitals, the clean water systems, the bank, the data centers, the digital tools, and the livestock upgrades, and a clear picture forms. Burkina Faso isn't waiting for rescue. It's not copying development models from the West. It's building a new model entirely, one based on self-reliance, integration, and dignity. And perhaps what's most striking is how quiet this revolution has been. No fanfare, no global headlines, no big pronouncements, just steady, strategic, human-centered change, happening one brick, one panel, one account at a time. The world might not have expected it, but now it can't ignore it. What do you think? Is Burkina Faso outpacing even the West in some areas of development? Should more nations follow this path of self-powered progress? If this story inspired you, drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video to support our work and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future developments across Africa and beyond.